you. Well, first of all, let me confess, while we just settle down for this, the most sought after fireside chat, uh, between these two gentlemen, we've got all the industry, whether it's GCC or Indian enterprises, covered because they are the ones actually who are meeting more than anyone else in this room, the business leaders, and really kind of probing them what's in for them today.
I was holding my breath when you said between two of them. Maybe you said two like centuries of years or something.
So Mahesh, that's the reason why there is a human element out here. So, and let me also confess this thing, and Subir, Mahesh, feel free to kind of disagree. We haven't prepared for this fireside session because I particularly felt when you've got experts in the room, it will flow. Let me start with you, Mahesh. I think let's first, as a disclaimer, use AI, Gen AI, analytics in the same continuum. Because if we have that conversation around nomenclatures, definitions, that won't be enough. The question over there about this whole conundrum about everyone is talking about from a business leader's perspective that, look, AI has arrived, it's a game-changing aspect. And more predominantly, it's about application, adaptability, and the enterprise-wide AI adoption, what we say that. But that's a holy grail. In your conversations, what is that you are witnessing, what these leaders are all about in terms of the AI adoption?
Yeah, so firstly, Samir, congrats on putting up this show. Really super to see the energy in this room. So we've been meeting with clients across several industries, financial services, retail, e-commerce, healthcare, pharma. And you're right, it seems like AI's moment has arrived. There's a lot of noise right in the boardroom about what one should do, right? And on one side there's excitement. We ran a survey and we found that 3 out of 4 business leaders are starting to prepare pretty actively for implementation. But the flip side is there's a lot of concerns, angst, a lot of what you folks have been speaking about since the morning, right? What are the right use cases? Where do you get the skills? What tech do you build on? So it's both of those. And then when you peel it all away, I think there's 4 killer apps which people are really focusing on, right? The first is the conversational interfaces, right? So I think every app today is going to get a layer of NLP. And then if you guys saw what happened last week with OpenAI and what they did with ChatGPT, it's not just language. It's no longer a language model. It's a multimodal model. So it can see, it can hear, it can understand images. And some of those capabilities are mind-blowing. So you can think of, we all have our smartphones, 8 inches of black surface which we navigate our digital lives. That's going to change. It's going to become more ambient, it's going to become more conversational. So that's one massive change, and all of our customer engagement projects across clients are beginning to take note of that. So that's number 1. Number 2, of course, is co-pilots, productivity assistants across the board, and that's going to penetrate all parts of the entire app ecosystem, and the big tech guys are already giving us those capabilities. That's number 2. I think number 3 is about code. To me, generative code is an absolute game changer. People of you who've played around with GitHub Copilot or Codex, even Llama right now, I think we've got implementations in EY, and we're seeing 30 to 40% improvement in new programmers. Right? That's where really the entire benefit comes fast. If you have a seasoned programmer, it's going to take some time. But as we get our people to get armed with some of these things, I think it's just a different scale at which you can release new capabilities. And the 4th, I think, is architecture. How do you build apps fundamentally, right? The whole front end we spoke about, but BPM engines, workflow engines, even how you talk to APIs through plugins will change. So these are some of the levers, I think, and the trends where value is going to come from. And this is what we're seeing in our...
Let me come to this, Mahesh, and you rightly pointed about these 4 points, and let me pick up Subir from here. And Subir, just a top up on this. Now, in a year where most of the industries saw a very muted performance perhaps, and I'm talking about from a global scenario, jump starting with
But you know, as some of this hype is beginning to settle, I guess companies are beginning to understand that you've got to do this in some sort of a structured way. So firstly, you know, large global corporations tend to be highly federated. And so what you can't have is a bunch of people running around in every country trying to figure out what they can do with Gen AI, because it's unproductive and it doesn't help. So I think companies are beginning to realize that you need to put some common infrastructure in place, whether that's data repositories that can be used to, you know, can be used for the LLMs, whether that's common resources or common tools so that you can collaborate better. And then, you know, of course, you know, the point around, finally, you got to train your staff, because the whole point about using this technology is that it should not be that you need to call necessarily for every small thing a firm like us to help you deliver. So, you know, training your staff. But you've got to put some of these foundational blocks in before you can really build a bunch of proof of concepts. And I think we've heard it since the morning that at best what has happened up to now is a few proof of concepts. But in reality, companies are really focusing on the foundation so that they can then build on it. That's where I think most of the companies are today.
So let me ask you on this again. Do the CXOs get this thing that, look, they need to first internalize what AI is all about for their enterprise, and then really look at this whole strategic flavor, the point what Mahesh...
Absolutely, there is a thinking that is now emerging around that. And particularly in financial services, a lot of this is also being driven, you know, by regulators, because this is still highly unregulated. So whatever might be happening in Gen AI, into the Gen AI production of a lending module. So you've got regulators saying, what about the cyber risks of using Gen AI? That's why I said that, you know, it started with a massive amount of hype, but I think leadership in large global corporations are understanding that you need to do something carefully, you need to do it in a measured way, and you need to do it such that it can be replicated across the organization.
But I think where they're kind of maybe missing some of it, like exactly like Subir said, people get it, they want to be cautious. But then what's happening in some of our clients is people are being told, boss, ye Gen AI ke saath kya hota hai, dikha do. And people are running around to create, you know, just point solutions which show off Gen AI capabilities. That, theek hai, I got this summarization done here, or, you know, look at this way in which I'm using Midjourney to create some images if I'm a media company. I think where it will go very fast in, let's say, the next 12 months, 18 months, it will move towards more holistic functional transformation, even before enterprise transformation. But you take, let's take a bank, right? Now, I don't know how many of you have seen how banks lend today, right? And I think Pratik probably mentioned it in his keynote earlier. You know, you have to go through reams and reams of paper. You'll be asked to have 10 conversations, you know, with you know, your agents. Once that is done, you obviously have a policy, which is a piece of paper, but then it's gone into maybe a business rules engine somewhere and a code somewhere else. It's the customer experience is pretty bad. You know, most people struggle, most banks struggle. So now, how do you get a customer onboarding co-pilot done? Do you need, you know, a separate way in which you're going to treat your knowledge? So there's knowledge engineering to be done, because this is disparate across the entire, you know, bank. And then more importantly, are you going to start training your own LLM for credit, for collections, for onboarding? So I think that's where it will go very fast. I think a lot of FOMO right now, lots of good action, but the business value is still in front of us.
So just picking on that, Mahesh, a contrarian view. Many of these banks, financial services, insurance, and I'm now including retail CPG companies, they've invested a lot into analytics AI over the years. Now, there is also one aspect and dimension that, look, we invested a whole lot of money, suddenly Gen AI comes in, disrupts everything, and now you're asking much more budgets and share of wallet from us. What's your response over there?
So, look, I think there's going to be a kind of a two-speed path over here, right? You take something like, let's say, a cross-sell recommendation algorithm, correct? That ain't moving to Gen AI. That's going to continue, you're going to use collaborative filtering and standard techniques which have been there for decades, and they've been perfected and they work. At best, what will happen in those cases is Gen AI becomes a front end to more complex systems. The data warehouse ain't going anywhere. Okay, yeah, it may be data fabric, data mesh, we can pick, what it is. But all of those investments which are made are going to continue to be leveraged when
But
all of this settles down.
There is a quest to also include more synthetic data
Yeah.
to ensure it works.
Exactly. So in fact, exactly right. If anything, those investments will get supercharged because of what Gen AI capabilities are. But those investments are not going away, right? And more importantly, if you look at two big areas where companies we see struggle. One is data, exactly like you said. If you don't have the data, there's nothing much you can do regardless. Even though there's democratization, you're still going to need your own data to make it competitive. That's one part of it. The second is your digital. And that's where in India, we're going to see a lot more action right now. Right now from the big corporates, conglomerates going right down to medium and small businesses. As we accelerate our digital adoption, that's what's going to actually supercharge some of the adoption of Gen AI as well. So I wouldn't, how you open the conversation is exactly right. There's no Gen AI versus AI, etc. It's a continuum. You have to choose horses for courses. There are problems which are well solved by traditional AI algorithms, which should continue to be done. But Gen AI brings a different way in which you can interact with systems, productivity assistance, etc.
Awesome. So we're picking up on GCCs. A turnaround has happened over the last couple of years with a lot of niche boutique GCCs and also a lot of what I call elevated work which is happening. Now, suddenly, Gen AI comes in, and the want from the GCC is, okay, tell us what can be done. What is the trend you are seeing from a perspective of GCCs where do they have a journey map? Do they have a kind of a sense around going around creating a center of excellence or a capability hub? What is that set of conversations you are seeing over there?
Yeah. I think that's exactly correct. There's a lot of conversations happening. I think the thought that people have sort of sits within three buckets. Mahesh slightly alluded to it, but I can speak a little more. There are three areas where people are constantly looking at how you can use this new technology. The first is, how can I be more productive in my role? Okay, so, I think Ratnaprabha spoke about Morgan Stanley, financial planners, they get benefit of using ChatGPT or some form of AI which makes them more productive. Or I'm trying to lend money to a coal plant, and I know that there are many, many issues around ESG when you lend to a coal plant, so how do I make a loan to a coal plant such that it complies? This is how do I do my job better? And there's a lot of use cases that people are thinking on that. The second is, how do I respond to a customer query? So this is typically a situation where you'll have a person sitting in a contact center. Someone like you, Samir, will call up and ask a question which they hadn't really experienced. Their initial or current way of functioning would be, don't know how to answer that, Samir, we'll have to find out. Someone will call you back in 48 hours. That, is a use case which is, how do I do something to make my customer's life better? And finally, the third one is around direct customer interaction. And to me, that's the last piece, which is, I think, still at the very early stage of thinking. But what are you doing to be able to have some form of AI that is directly interfacing with your customer? And chatbots have been there, but anyone who's used a chatbot knows how frustrating it can be. So how do you make it such that the chatbot is actually more efficient? And really, I think, GCCs are very, very well positioned to do this, because all of this activity that leads to these three areas of usage are all sitting within a GCC. So fundamentally, I see the GCC as a microcosm of the global organization.
Exactly.
And the best place actually to experiment with some of this stuff. The one thing that I would caution people is, don't try to do things in stealth mode. It never works in the medium term. Something goes wrong.
I've also heard stories that there are GCCs getting set up in stealth mode. So is that a subtle hint you are throwing over there? So one thing, and sorry to chime in because I want to cover a few melange of themes out here given in interest of time. And this is a question, Mahesh, to you and Subi to you. Now let's take a strategic view, boardroom conversations. In the last, I would say 3 months, personally, I've been invited for about 18 conversations with the board. What is that you are seeing in terms of this AI, Gen AI being a very strategic agenda, or the board is curious, really figuring out? Give us some views over there, and this would be interesting because I think that's where the whole essence about how the leadership is looking at AI comes into the picture. And Subir, I'll take your views as well.
Yeah, so I think in the boardroom, I think the first conversation really is obviously some level of awareness, depending on which company it is, but it very quickly moves to where's the business value, right? And you can see, and many directors and CEOs, CXOs, they are now smart enough to understand that seeing a well-curated demo is not anything you can use. I can create a demo under the best conditions, and I can make a robot do all kinds of things. It's not going to work. You need layers of integration, compliance, controls, etc. So they have to understand where is the real value. That's the first conversation. The second conversation in the boardroom very quickly moves to skills. So what the heck do I do? Where do I find these people? I'm barely able to get my BI and my management reporting done every week. That's the second conversation, which is really about skills. What do I need to do? We are seeing that in EY, across the entire organization. We've launched a massive program because you can imagine in the consulting business, this is going to impact us dramatically. The way you look for knowledge, the way you conceptualize proposals, the way you architect solutions. So we've launched EY.ai, which is a program really to move very quickly into all of the things we are doing within our skills area. And I think it's going to be across the board. Large companies, the government of India has got a big program right now. So I think that's number 2, which is skills. The third is about data and data privacy, back to what Subir said. People are scared. People just writing prompts on ChatGPT, you don't know what's going on. There are multiple instances where companies have. So putting that governance, risk, regulatory framework around the whole thing is a boardroom topic. And the last is, there's so much confusion on platforms. What do you build on? Everyone's got their own vendors. They've got clouds right now. They've got apps. The OEMs are talking about stuff. There's a ton of confusion. People want to do, using open source and try to train their own models, but there's no GPUs available. It's expensive. So that's, those conversations. So these are the 4 things which I'm seeing.
Sure.
I would probably just add 2 more to that. One is, what are the risks to the organization? And that would be for anything that you adopt new, you would consider the risks. And in this area, the risks are slightly more heightened because there's still, as Mahesh said, a lack of understanding of what this tech is. That's sort of one more point. And the final point is that, this whole concept of job losses is something that the leadership of large global companies needs to handle quite carefully, because the perception around job losses and the reality around job losses is never the same. But how do you manage that perception is something that these companies, and you got to remember that politically in your home market, you can't be seen as a large employer and at the same time sacking, the news that has happened in the last 9 months with companies like Amazon and Meta and all having to reduce headcount. It's been massively negative news. And obviously you don't want to connect application of a new technology to something like that without having given it enough thought.
So let me take that as a last question in the interest of the time. And this question actually is from few delegates who asked me during the sideline conversation. And I want to toss up to both of you. This essence of displacement of jobs. If coding is an issue where Gen AI takes over a chunk of the coding work, we already have seen how marketing, ops, HR, finance are getting disrupted, if I use. What's the career for tomorrow left? Consulting? Sales? Or is that also under threat? And this is purely from the audience because there is a melange of audience from GCC, enterprises, tech companies. Next 5 years, if they have to plan their career, Are they sitting in the right spot, Subir, Mahesh? Or there is a reason to worry?
Maybe I go first, and I guess I've been working longer than Mahesh, so I can.
That's where the seniority
Look,
card comes in.
when the first mainframe came into a bank, everyone thought there's going to be no work for anyone. When the first ATM machine came into banking, everyone thought there's going to be no work for the branch people. When the first desktop got put on the desk of a executive, everyone thought, I'm not going to need 10 people. I can now do this all with 5 people. Technology, I think over the years, we've seen enough in history now that as tech evolves, the actual opportunity for people to do a different type of a role evolves at the same time. It's not that you need fewer people. You just need people who now have evolved with the technology. You don't need a person now who can count cash at a teller. That skill is no longer needed. But is there fewer people in a bank today than, look at the size of the global bank, look at the size of all, someone like us. I mean, I don't know, Mahesh, in the last 10 years, we would have probably doubled in headcount in size as a firm globally. Yeah?
Probably 5 times.
Yeah, so God knows. It just tells you that what is needed
Subir,
is to adapt.
That's a subtle sales pitch you did, actually.
No.
Well, not even subtle.
No, I was not intending to be subtle. In fact, on the contrary, I was trying to make a point that,
So
look.
you said evolve with the tech.
Yeah,
That's
you got
your
to
mantra.
evolve. That's my
Okay,
key point.
great.
You got to evolve, and jobs and opportunities will be there.
And
Wonderful.
100%, exactly. Subir hit the nail on the head. It's more difficult to envision the new jobs of tomorrow than it is, or it's easy to see the jobs which will get impacted, right? I see this exactly like Subir said. Mainframes didn't eliminate, calculators didn't eliminate accountants, PowerPoints didn't eliminate consultants. We're still here, and the jobs you do will be different. How they will change is a very interesting question, and what will be the content of jobs. I think like Raghav was speaking just before us, I think there's going to be this symbiotic interaction between intelligent agents and human beings. You can never replace, I'm being very specious right now, but human beings are human beings. We're crazy, we're creative. Of course, models hallucinate, but more and more, you will see that symbiotic relationship, and the jobs of the future, I think, will be much richer, and we will be much more productive.
Symbiotic relations. Awesome. Now, what you could witness in last, I would say we took some more time, but 25 minutes. This is what I call power of wisdom, not experience, because when two gentlemen, without any prep, comes together, what came out was each and every response, if you see, was what I call the nuggets of wisdom, 3, 4, 5 solid, succinct ideas, and that's exactly how the consulting works. Is that true?
Let Subir answer that.
I hope at least EY is going beyond giving. I hope that EY is going beyond just giving ideas to clients. We're actually demonstrating that those ideas can deliver.
Wonderful.
So-
Thank you so much, Mahesh and Subir. I know both of you have a crunch. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.